Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll reconvene the Board of Finance public hearing on the 2015-2016 budget. Today is February 18th, approximately 6:35, and tonight we will address the Education Operations Board of Education. All members of the Board of Finance are present, as well as representatives of the Board of Education. Welcome, everyone. Good evening.
Introduce ourselves?
Please.
Okay, I'm Sue Kelleher. I'm the Director of Special Education.
Mike Cummings, Assistant Superintendent.
Sue Glennon, Chair of the Board of Education.
CEO. And I think all of you have been here many times before. So we usually invite you to make any presentation or statement that you'd like to the board, and then we'll run through the budget and we'll ask any questions that we may have.
Okay, well, I'll start with some opening remarks, if that's okay. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address the Board of Finance on our recommended budget for the 2016 year. I'll make some opening remarks, and then I'll turn the presentation over to Dr. Fieser and his staff. So, as you are probably aware, over the past few years, the Board of Education has been involved in a review of the school system in light of declining enrollment. The decision was made last fall to return to a K-5 configuration of our elementary schools, which is a move that's been widely supported by parents and the community. The budget request that you have before you tonight is largely driven by the needs surrounding that reconfiguration, which will spread all 6 grades, kindergarten through grade 5, over our 8 elementary schools, and will decentralize our pre-kindergarten classes over at least 3 schools. It is the board's goal to ensure parity among the schools in programming and utilization of space. In addition, we look to maintain and improve upon the significant strides our school system has realized over the past several years. So last year I spoke to you of the need to continue with the revision of our curriculum and the development of common assessments across grades and disciplines. While there will always be room for improvement, the new and more challenging common assessments have shown growth in math and English language arts at most grade levels. We are excited about some of the new courses that have been added to the high school program of studies, such as app design, computer science, advanced placement psychology, advanced placement art, and advanced placement physics. Our students have risen to the challenge of these rigorous courses, and the number of high school students taking advanced placement courses has more than doubled in the past 3 years to 552 this past June, with many students taking more than one AP course. In fact, it was announced last October that Milford ranked first in its district reference group, D, and 12th in the state out of 116 districts offering advanced placement courses for the number of students who achieved an advanced placement scholar status by the College Board. That's quite a feat, and it's an accomplishment that I think we all should be extremely proud of. Additionally, over the past several months, the board has enjoyed demonstrations by elementary and middle school students on the use of smart boards and tablets in their coursework, and the development of computer programming apps at the high school level. Our goal to utilize technology to strengthen the learning of students is taking hold. With regard to the app design course, Milford is one of only 30 pilot sites across the United States, with 22 sites in Connecticut alone, and 2 of them in Milford at our 2 high schools, Jonathan Law and Foreign. And this will become an advanced placement level course in the 2016-17 school year that we'll be able to offer to our students. We have also begun an internship pilot program for high school students, which will be expanded in the coming years, and middle school students can now earn up to 3 credits towards high school graduation. At the elementary level, new reading and math curriculum are increasing students' abilities to engage in more complex work. Literacy and numeracy coaches have supported daily professional learning for teachers as they change their instructional practices to meet new demands. And at the pre-K level, it is our desire to see all classes obtain accreditation by the National Association for the Education of Young Children. This is a rigorous process that includes 10 program standards with specific criteria attached to each, and will ensure our pre-K programs provide the best learning experience for young children by meeting national standards of quality. Lastly, at all levels, there is continuous use of staff, student, and parent surveys to identify and improve the educational and the social environments of our school buildings. The budgets that you have supported over the last few years laid the groundwork that helped achieve these gains. It is of utmost importance that we have the resources to build on them as we continue to raise the bar for our students and our staff. I hope you will recognize the board's commitment to bringing before you a budget that truly reflects the needs of the school district. We'll now share with you the major points of the budget, where we found savings within the existing budget to cover the costs, and any additional questions that you might have. So I'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Fieser for that.
Thank you, Mrs. Wyman. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to begin by actually speaking to everything that is on this two-page summary. And please feel free to stop if there are questions that you may have around clarification. As Mrs. Glennon just shared with you, the biggest piece of this budget is tied to redistricting. And as she indicated, we are moving to the K-5 configuration, actually pre-K-5, although pre-K will be in 3 or 4 buildings, not in all 8. We are also redistricting the schools such that there would be greater balance. Not that they're going to be equal in number, because the schools, as you well know, are in different sizes, but that there would not be extremes of some schools being overcrowded and others being really under enrollment. So let me begin then with the elementary reconfiguration, which is the whole top set of requests here, and begin with the staffing. And again, this is all elementary needs that are listed here. We are in the budget requesting 19.5 additional teachers at the elementary level. And I underscore this is at the elementary level. So 16 of these requests are for regular classroom teachers. 3 of them are for what we call specialists. For example, in music, physical education, we need additional teachers. And then a 0.5 strings teacher is needed. You may wonder, why are the more teachers needed? It's really the issue of economy of scale. And the best example that I can give to you is that right now, any one of our grade levels are in 4 schools. So if we took 3rd grade and said, for example, that there were 400 kids in the 3rd grade across the 4 schools, then that's 100 students per school divided by 20. So that's 5 sections in each school. That's 20 sections across the 4 schools. If you take those same 400 students and you put them in 8 schools, you now have 50 students. Well, we wouldn't have necessarily 25 kids in the grade levels, particularly if they were K2, we wouldn't go with. So then you're adding a section, which then is what we're talking about in terms of the need for additional classroom teachers. The specialists also, because you now have, in every one of the schools, we will have band and strings, as well as the choral program. Right now, in the K2 schools, we don't have band and strings because it doesn't start until 3rd grade. But now you're going to have them again across the 8 schools, so there's that need for additional staffing. So that's the 3.5 teachers.
Excuse me, Dr.
Sure.
With the additional teachers, are those going to be new hires, or are those from the ones that you're going, the staff reduction, are those teachers taking this place? How does that work, or are these new hires?
So what you will see on the back in terms of savings is that we actually are going to have staff reductions, not at the elementary.
Okay, so
at the middle and high of 13.4 regular teachers.
So those teachers aren't necessarily going to move into this.
Some of them may.
They may.
Some of them may. For example, our 6th grade teachers have certification that's K6.
Okay.
So they actually could move into some of those positions if those were positions that were reduced.
Okay.
Okay?
Can I ask you at that point,
teachers are unionized, are they not?
Yes, they are.
Do they have the option to, quote, bid on that position in the K-5 group?
It's generally done by seniority. Mr. Cummings, do you want to speak more to that, being you've been through this process?
In general, it's seniority, but there's also strictures within the contract that, for example, treat every grade level as a department. So our past practice has been, it's more desirable to keep a grade 3 teacher in grade 3, even if it's a different building. We've trained them, they've got professional development over the years. It suits us better to kind of keep them with the grade level they've been exposed to and worked with. So there are some, while seniority is always in play, the administration has some authority to place people by background and skill sets. And we do that.
Now, can they arbitrate that?
They can. In the past, there's been grievances around that, but we've won every single one of those grievances.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So beyond the classroom teachers, we are requesting 4 additional teacher leaders. Teacher leaders, we have them in 4 of our schools right now, in Pumpkin Delight, Kennedy, Matheson, and Meadowside. What we would like to do is to place them into the other 4 schools. We created these positions, quite honestly, we created them when the new teacher evaluation system came into place, and the burdens on the principals, all principals, but the elementary principals in particular, because they had no other administrator in the building, was absolutely enormous. So I can give you an example that Sean Smith, his first year, did 106, I think it was, observations, where you do your some of those are pre-observations, but you do your observation, and then you do an immediate meeting with the teacher to give immediate feedback, then you do the write-up, and then you do another debrief with 100 different times you have to do this. And so you're pulled off of who's handling all the managerial kinds of things. So this position is a teacher who is released full-time from his or her responsibilities, who then is helping with all of the stuff, I call it, like there, could be bus schedules, it could be some disciplinary issues, it could be sitting in on, a student assistance team, it could be working with a team of teachers planning an activity, it could be working with the PTA, it could be working with a group of students who are going to become student leaders. It's picking up a lot of those things that the principal did before, but just simply does not have the time if he or she is going to really do justice to the instructional program. I mean, the landscape has changed dramatically, quite honestly, for the role of the principal at the elementary level.
This would be at a 70-grand salary.
Yes.
That is an existing teacher doing
Yes.
this. Why wouldn't we take in somebody at a lower salary to do this position?
Well,
Because it seems to be just a helping thing, not necessarily a fully educational, a teaching position as such, where they could grow into the teaching position from this point up.
Well, we would want someone who has some teaching experience, because the person does work with teachers in certain capacities, but our teacher leaders have done professional development because they have some expertise themselves, whether it's in literacy or math. They also maybe are working with the 3rd grade team of teachers, or they might work with the 1st grade, depending upon, again, which school they're in. The second thing is we post the positions. Anyone can apply for them, inside or out. I mean, it's an open posting. Generally speaking, teachers who have some experience, I don't want to say that they're 20 years, but they have some experience, are selected. So the $70,000 was really, it's about what is being paid right now for the 4.
Well, I'm at that point. What is the highest paid teacher, just for salary, not for extraneous fees?
Yeah, the teacher salary scales are in the,
It's in the program.
yeah, they're in the appendix. Appendix E. It's on page
A14.
A14, correct. then you can see the salary scales.
Would this be something that someone who's looking to, let's say, break into administration, is this the type of position they would go?
Yes, in fact, we require that the person has the certification for administration, not that they're considered an administrator, but
they need
but
that
they would have that background, and then also too, if the principal is out of the building, you know, you have someone who at least
Right.
has that certification. It has just been invaluable in the 4 schools, and what we're concerned about is that we're moving to a K-5 structure. Every building now is going to have 6 grades in the sense of curriculum, some new teachers, and teachers who are new to different grade levels, et cetera. So once again, there may not be that many more teachers per se in terms of evaluation, but the scope is broader because it's now 6 grades versus 3 grades, which it is right now in each of the schools. And we really feel that this position is needed. Again, the elementary schools, and I was a high school person, but people, and myself included, for years thought, wow, how hard could elementary be? My ignorance. They have their secretary. That's who they have. That's it. You know, they have the nurse, but the nurse is continually working with children and families. You know, they have a social worker. But my point is they don't have assistant principals. They don't have 2 secretaries or 3 secretaries. I mean, they don't have that. They don't have, the staffing that you would have in the middle and the high school. So,
If I could add, the board has had some presentations by teacher leaders and principals that have and don't have that support. And it does seem that the schools that do have the teacher leader has really been able to do a lot more with student leadership and mentorships and things like that, because they have the time to do that. So I think that's one thing that kind of brought home to the board why it's important to put this into all 4, for all the other 4 buildings.
Do the teacher leaders get together on a periodic basis, the 4 that you have, and discuss whatever it is that they're doing?
they do. I don't think that it's necessarily formalized that they get
They're
together, but they have
actually
a,
on a PLC.
yeah, I was going to say, in the sense of prior to this year, they did it, I think, somewhat informally, but they're now, every teacher is part of what we call a professional learning community, where you have a team of teachers working together around instructional issues or issues tied to their job, and this group, there's 4 of them, they form their own professional learning community. So with that, it's at least once a month now, right, on Wednesdays, that they would be getting together, if not more often. They also, I will say, contribute a lot to the culture of the schools, because they're, again, with the time that they have, they plan assemblies. If any of you have children or grandchildren in the schools, there's every one of the buildings, they do their student of the month, their Middleside does its heart awards, and there's a lot of planning that goes into those.
So you don't ever see this going that you'd have to have like a head teacher leader person, someone that oversees all these, but you don't ever see this going that way, do you?
No.
I think this is also a less expensive way, so to speak, to have an assistant principal type of figure in the building. I mean, I personally think there's a lot of value to having a second in command in the schools, and I know surrounding town, Stratford has assistant principals in the elementary schools. This is an alternative that can be accomplished at a lesser cost than having an actual administrator.
I'm just thinking long range for, if there was ever gonna be a position that needed to be created to oversee just the teacher leaders.
I wouldn't think so.
Principals do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How many are there total in the entire system?
Of this position?
Yes.
4.
Oh.
They're in the elementary, they're in 4 of the elementary schools.
So right now
There
we
are
have
other,
4, so we're hiring another 4, so there'll be 8.
right. I mean, the term was used in the past for other, I know, Sue, you have a couple of special ed, but they're not this job description at all.
Correct.
You have one, I think, in ELL, am I correct?
We have one that does our pre-K and elementary level, and another that does middle and secondary levels and focuses on reading. So their scope of responsibilities are very different. These 8 are strictly at the elementary buildings.
And they're building based, 100% of the time. Each one is in a particular building.
What are the present teacher leaders being paid right now?
It varies, we have to get that
By
from the actual.
number of years and et cetera, et cetera.
Wherever they were on the pay scale, when they took that position, they're not getting any bump or anything like
Right,
that.
right.
Wherever they were on the pay scale when they were hired, that's what they're being paid at.
So they still get the teacher's salary?
Correct.
Right.
Just the teacher's salary.
But they've been in existence for how many years now?
Two,
The ones now?
the ones now.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. The next, I'm going to go through all of these, but what I want to underscore is this next set of requests are all one-time requests tied to redistricting, from overtime all the way down to the end. So these amounts will not be in next year's budget, because they're really for the redistricting. So let me begin with the overtime that is being requested, and we're asking for overtime for custodial, maintenance, and secretarial. You probably know immediately why we would be asking for the custodial and maintenance. All of that tied to what it's going to take to move the schools from K2 and from K5 to K5 schools. And so we know from past experience that it's not going to be able to be done within the hours that normally it would take in any given summer, et cetera. And then with respect to the secretarial, what we are asking for there is that for each elementary secretary, they don't work during the summers. They're the only buildings, only level, no secretary throughout the summer, is that we would bring them in for 2 weeks. That's what that is, part of that cost, so that overtime piece. So the entire amount there that we're requesting is $75,000. We are also asking for extra time for IT temporary help and for the central registration temporary secretary. Let me talk about the IT temporary help first. So we have a lot of equipment that has to be moved and to be set up for the K5 schools, and we always hire in mostly college students in the summertime. What we're anticipating is the need is going to be even greater because of the elementary, and the goal is to have every single computer, every class, in every school up and ready to roll at the start of the year. So, so that's the IT temporary help. And then what we also want to do, kindergarten registration is going to be next month. It always is in March. Normally it takes place in the buildings. We are concerned in the sense that we don't know yet when the decisions are going to be made around redistricting, et cetera. And beyond that, we have 4 schools that don't have kindergarten in them. So parents would be coming to the schools and there's no kindergarten kids there. The principal is there, but not necessarily the teachers who might be teaching their kids, because they're 3-5 schools, in other words. So our thought was for this summer, or for this kindergarten registration, to do a central registration here at Parsons. So all kindergarten families would register their children here at Parsons. We would have an administrator available, we would have teachers available. The process would be similar in the sense of any screenings that would be done, information that would be gathered, but it would be centralized at the time that parents are registering. They may not know which school they're assigned to, but at least someone is overseeing every one of these registrations. And then when the decisions are made, that information can go out.
Are teachers being paid extra for this?
No, they're released. Am I correct on that,
For
Mr.
the
Cummings?
moving?
No,
No,
for
with
the
the
registration.
Oh, no, it's part of their day, no, it would be for their
During the
assignment
summer?
day, yeah.
No,
No, during
Oh,
March.
this is March, I'm sorry,
March.
right.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about.
So what you should know is so part of the cost, since we're gonna actually bring this person on board within the next few weeks, we haven't hired the person yet, but it'll be, that cost between now and June would be covered in the current budget, but then we would have this person stay on over the summertime to help with making sure everything gets to the proper schools for the people who register over the summer, which there's always people who are coming in to register their children, and of course toward the end of August, beginning of September, there's this usually, kind of an additional group of people that come in. So what's in the budget here is really for that piece of it in the summertime. We would end it at the end of September, that position. So this is temporary, and it's purely, right at this point, for the redistricting. Moving expenses. We have $50,000 in here. In all honesty, it's going to cost $300,000. And we had actually put that in the non-lapsing account, if you remember a year ago, set that aside for moving. But we used approximately $50,000 of that for the consultants, Marlon and McGrew, for the redistricting piece. So we have $250,000 earmarked for moving. We put $50,000 additional in. This is literally based upon what was paid 5 years ago when the move took place. For the moving company, literally for the moving company to come in with their trucks
Do we have a contract for that yet?
No, we'll probably go off the state bid, which is.
So this is an estimate date, okay.
Well, it's an estimate based upon the experience from 2010.
No, that's 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, it's making quite a bit of difference,
Well,
possibly.
yeah, but we've learned a lot. We learned a lot from the first move. Hopefully, we're going to be a little bit more efficient in the move. So we think we can do it for $300,000 that was paid for before.
Next, what we're requiring, we need some extra time for network wiring and alterations. That's different from the IT temporary help. They're moving equipment and setting all that up. This is literally to do wiring, there are some buildings where classrooms are not wired that need to be. Again, because we've had K2 and then 3.5, K2 obviously has much less technology in it than the 3.5s do, but now we're going to have K5 schools. So those schools, some of them really need to have additional wiring and whatever else is needed in order for the technology to function. I don't know, Mr. Cummings, if you want to add to that.
Only that when we think about the move, I think a lot of, or you conceive of this move, a lot of people think about the moving van coming to the door and that's where it ends, but there's also in each building a necessary reset. If you think about each building now as it exists, whether it's K2 or 3.5, roughly speaking, there's a hall with every grade level. Those halls now are going to have to shift, where now kindergarten rooms, some of those rooms are going to become grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going to have to be moved around, which means that some rooms that have existed for 5 years without some technology are going to now need technology. We're going to repurpose. So if a room doesn't need a smart board, the smart board will come off the wall and put in a room that needs it, but that's going to cost us some money as well. So there's the move between buildings and then the moves within buildings is going to have to occur as well.
We have $50,000 in here for building projects. Am I right? Am I reading this correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so, but the building projects, so for example, with the move of pre-K classrooms out to 3 to 4 buildings, those classrooms, there may be some changes that need to be made inside the classroom itself to accommodate pre-K children. So in other words, some rooms are going to be repurposed just simply because of whatever the programs are that are going to be in them that weren't up to this point. We had all of our pre-K, we do right now, all of them were housed in Orange Avenue. There's 10 pre-K classrooms. So now we're taking those and moving them out to maybe 3 other buildings in addition to Orange Avenue. So that's just an example of when we talk about building projects.
So 4 pre-K, that's right. 4 pre-K.
4 buildings.
Four,
locations,
yeah,
10
4
classrooms
creative buildings,
altogether.
yeah.
Right. With respect to instructional supplies, we have a $92,000, and so let me explain what this is. One, we're gonna have additional teachers than what we have, so those teachers, those classrooms need classroom libraries, they need, there's gonna be more, instructional materials tied to the curriculum, mathematics, the language arts, science, etc. So it's ensuring that across all 8 buildings, remember, they're now K-5 schools, that there's sufficient instructional supplies for all of the schools. So that's, again, it's a one-time cost to ensure, again, equity across the schools with respect to all of the instructional materials that they needed. Library media collections, we have $28,000. And what that is to ensure that the library media centers are rich, which we take real pride in what exists now in our libraries. But remember, our libraries right now are K2, and then we have 3-5. Well, we don't want to just immediately, empty out 50% of the books in the K2 and ship them off to the other schools. What we want to make sure of is that there are sufficient titles and numbers of titles for children in all K-5. So that's the reason why there would be additional books that would be purchased. Musical instruments may surprise you, but what I would say to you is that what we don't want to see happen is that, for example, one school has a cello, so many violins, a viola, a bass, and another school, well, they don't have the bass and the cello, because we don't have enough for 8 schools. So that's the example of why. Again, when you're going across the 8 schools, you want to make sure that kids are not denied the instruments that one school has and another school doesn't have. Furniture and fixtures are just, it's a small amount, but there may be a need for desks, for example, file cabinets. That's really what that $10,000 is for. And then the $20,000 for professional development is really centered on the fact that we know there are some teachers who are going to change grade levels. So they've been teaching 3rd grade math, 3rd grade, and now they're moving to 4th grade. Well, 4th grade math, a whole new curriculum from 3rd grade. The language arts, the science, etc. So we know that there's going to have to be professional development. And there may be people who are not just moving like 1 grade. It could be literally that they're moving 3 grades. They could be teaching 2nd grade and they move to 5th. So that's really what that PD is. But I'll reiterate that that amount from the overtime on down is $427,500. Of that $427,000, there are one-time costs.
And I may have missed it, so I'm sorry, but when I read through the summary here, I see that you were looking for media aids, but I don't see that here.
They were actually, turning them into 4 full-time was not approved by the Board of Ed.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to speak to that.
It's just that I saw it in this executive
Yeah,
summary.
so that was an expense for the budget.
Okay.
So these are the costs for the elementary reconfiguration, and as you can see, it's $1,877,000, just under $2 million for this. Again, the $400-some-thousand being the one-time costs. However, we didn't want to just say that's the only piece of our budget, because we really seek to continuously improve. So we've made some requests tied to academic improvement. 2 of them which are tied to the academy, and 1 that is tied to high schools. So the first request is for 2 academic support specialists, and these really are for foreign law, 1 each. And an academic support specialist is really someone who, it would be a language arts and math person whose primary responsibility would be to do intervention with identified kids who need some serious support in math and/or English. One of the things that emerged from, or recommendations that emerged from the report that was done, or the study that was done on our special ed program 2.5 years ago, was the fact that our intervention programs in our middle school and high school around language arts and math were lacking. We've really taken some steps in our middle school, and our high school now really needs some attention. So this is a step in that direction. And again, so that these folks would have expertise in math and in language arts, and they would service kids who are identified. When I say identified, I'm not just talking special ed. There would be regular ed kids that, if I'm a math teacher, could say, these 3 students really need some support. And the support that they receive might not be all year. It could be that they're really struggling with a particular unit in math, and so that's where they need the help. Maybe they're getting 6 weeks of support or a semester's worth of support. But this center would operate throughout the day in each of the buildings.
Is that something that happens after school? I mean, or is the child during their normal classroom period go to this intervention person?
It wouldn't be during the classroom period, but I mean, we would anticipate that it would be over and above, because good intervention is over and above, so that they're not missing the core lesson.
So this wouldn't necessarily be an after-hours position?
No,
It's
this is
kids
Built
are
into their
staying
schedule,
after
actually.
school.
It built into their schedule, like a study hall time or something like that.
This one person be both?
Not necessarily, because
Language ed.
it could be, 2 people, someone with expertise in math, somebody with expertise, and so maybe someone is half the time, and half the time is English. It's one position,
Right.
but it may very well be filled by 2 different people.
We would also anticipate that of the existing staffing at the high school, we would convert some of the existing staffing to support this position as well, so that while we believe we need the additional single position at each school, the total of the 2, we're not relying on that totally to bring this support system model into place. That we'll use some current FTE essentially to make sure that we're able to provide support in language arts and math for every period when students are available, both high schools. And we've had conversations with the principals that that's a commitment they're going to have to make this work.
So what you're saying is that the existing math teacher would be half instructional, 0.5 instructional, 0.5, is that the support
Potentially
position?
something like that, yes. We would definitely use existing staff to make this work.
So that's for law and foreign. The guidance counselor, I want to underscore, this is a .2 guidance counselor. So right now, the guidance counselor at the academy is the equivalent to a 4-day-a-week position. What we're asking is to enable this person to work 5 days a week, which is at a cost of $12,000. The counselor, beyond doing what a guidance counselor does, the academy has really lifted its standards. Again, given the Connecticut Common Core, teacher evaluation, the new testing that's coming forward, et cetera. So the role of the counselor has increased as well. What we would want her to do with that additional time is to be able to do more transitioning with kids who come from one of the high schools into the academy, or go from the academy back to the high school, because those periods are really hard for kids. We also see her working with adult ed around kids who are in the GED program, so there's a counseling piece for kids who are in there. The GED standards have risen dramatically. The state has just lifted those standards, and it's much more rigorous for kids to be able to earn, or adults to be able to earn a GED. And also, one of the moves that the academy is making is they really want to move kids into internships, and so the counselor would help along with the director in establishing and then monitoring those internships that kids would go out on. The goal is for kids to go out at least one full day a week in an internship, which is wonderful, but again, some of that is, there's a supervisory piece with that, et cetera.
How many students are in the academy now? I know that varies by day, but approximately do we have in there?
At this time of the year, probably about 80.
Yeah, we start to get, once the semester rolls, we're staffing, we get to capacity, which is about 80, 85.
88. On the average attendance, do we have?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
The average attendance. In other words, a lot of these kids just don't show up, right?
The academy, a good day of attendance for the academy is around 75 to 80%. It is a good day. Which they, quite honestly, in the past 3 years, we're seeing them reach more and more.
Oh, yeah.
And then tied to the academy, we were also asking for a reclassification of the position of director from a half-time position to full-time. The director right now is classified as .5 director, .5 teacher. The reality is she does far more of her job as a director than as a teacher. And so what we would like to do is to declare her as full-time director. What she will do as a full-time director, when in the afternoon, when the academy kids have already gone, there is another program that takes place at the academy, and it's called the Homebound program, but it's for kids who are on homebound and kids who are expelled. They come in for 2.5 hours, I believe, 4 days a week. And there's no administrator overseeing that program on a day-to-day basis. We would have the director oversee that program. We would also have the director take on the Title I grant, which is a mammoth grant annually. And in that way, we wouldn't have, right now, we've pulled in consultation from us, from a person from outside the district to help annually. So then we wouldn't have to do that. We would have this person assume responsibility for that. And as I indicated to you before with respect to the counselor, the director is also really taking the lead on internships, which is really establishing relationships with businesses and other organizations. I don't know if you read in the newspaper a few months ago, one of the partnerships that's been established between the academy, with the academy, is with Treat Farm, in which the kids are actually creating an organic garden, which I had no idea takes 3 to 4 years of doing special things with soil to get it to the point of where you then can grow organic vegetables. And that's one of the, there's a genuine commitment there, and the kids are already working on that. So we really feel it's justified to move that position to a director position. So while it's the $22,000 to be named that, you'll see on the savings on the other side, there is the .5 teaching equivalent that then becomes part of the savings.
Gotcha. On that position, is it, right now, is the director, is it just the classification in name only that it's teacher? Does she actually spend any time in the classroom teaching? And if so, do you have to put someone else in that position now to fill that void?
No, she does not teach.
Okay.
Is she in the
It's just
classrooms a lot?
classification. Yeah, no,
Yes.
understood.
Right, but
She's
no,
not
she
teaching.
is not teaching.
Okay, so it's classification more than
That's
anything.
right.
Okay.
What's the total salary?
That's in the appendix also.
Oh, it is back there, to the appendix? Page 14.
Administrator, it's A13, and if you see administrator all 10, the step 1 salary would be 114,088.
So 114, so she would go to 120, 136?
No, this would be her salary.
Oh, the 114 would be the
Right.
salary.
Right now she's paid half of this and half of teacher's salary.
Okay,
So the difference is about, the difference between the two, taking the teacher's part of it out, which is about 30,000, and adding this full-time, the difference is 22,000.
Okay.
This would be her salary.
okay. So right now, she's getting paid 22 less than the 114.
Correct.
And
Yes.
All right. So those were our requests tied to academic improvement. We also have some requests tied to safety and school climate. I think all of you are aware of the fact that in our elementary schools, we have greeter positions that have been in place now. This is the third year of the greeters. Is it or second? Third. Time flies when you're getting older. But anyways, and the positions have been invaluable. Parents speak about it all the time. Visitors to the schools, of course, the principals are thrilled to have them. And when you walk into an elementary school, instantaneously you cannot go any further because there is the greeter there who basically is stopping you to have you sign in, etc. Where are you going? What we're asking for is for 3 greeters for the middle school level, 1 for each of the middle schools. The middle schools are the only level, the only level where there is no either greeter or security guard. And if you've been in the middle schools, the design of the 3 middle schools are such that you literally can walk into the building and it's just an open corridor in every one of them. You have to go into the office in order to sign in with secretaries, and then again, the design of the offices are such that the secretaries are behind a counter, or, so it's not as if somebody just went flying by when they came into the building, that a secretary could immediately run after them, unless they could jump over, the barrier that's there. We're really concerned about the fact that, it would be very easy for someone to enter any one of the middle schools and just bypass straight through. So we're asking is that a greeter would be put in each one of them. And, that face-to-face, someone comes in, they can look someone in the eye, they can, take down who they are, where are they going, etc. So that's our request.
They're not buzzed in?
They are buzzed in.
Oh.
And there's cameras. The secretaries can see them. They can buzz them in. But again, the secretary, it's like if someone were coming in here, well, the secretary's around the wall, because you literally have to go into another room in order to sign in. You have to go into the office to sign in.
And if I could just jump in there, since a lot of the request for safety and school climate is as a result of the changes that have taken place after Sandy Hook, Public Act 13-3. And the front door procedures and protocols have changed completely. So before, we had the cameras at the front doors and the secretaries basically were buzzing people in. That all has changed now. There's still a buzzer at the door, and the greeter still has to buzz you in, or the secretary if the greeter's not there, or in the case of the middle schools, the secretary's doing it. But there's a protocol that you have to go through. You have to show your ID. Your ID has to be validated. The person has to call who the person is coming to visit. But it's a completely different front door atmosphere than just buzzing people in like it was before. It's a dedicated set of eyes at that front door.
If I could add, this is a position that was asked for last year, and at the board level, we reduced the position. And I do have to say, personally, I really reevaluated my opinion on this, and we did have principals, that came and spoke to us about experiences in the school. And I have to say, I have great concern at the middle schools about liability issues for a parent, somebody being able to get into the building. They might have a legitimate license, they're showing it at the camera, but they come in and they just, they can be down the hall in a second before a secretary can come out and try to track them down. And I do think it's a real high priority right now to have these in the middle schools.
I'm thinking of that. Those doors, safety doors? In other words, glass is safety glass, cannot be broken or any of that kind of thing?
No, not yet. That will be coming. That's in the, that's the next phase of security dollars that the mayor proposed and you approved a certain amount of money. There's some state grant money that's involved. The fortifying the vestibule, so to speak, is the third phase. The first phase is improving radio communication systems in all the schools. Second phase is to upgrade all of the camera systems and buzzers and front door access. And then the third phase will be fortifying the vestibules. And that's done. There's all kinds of new products that are out there today. There's film, there's bulletproof
Now, the
film.
East Shore doesn't have that already now?
It does, yes,
It does,
East Shore
okay,
does.
good. That's what he expected, okay.
Yes.
So the greeters actually engage everybody that comes in.
Yes. Yeah, they're right at the front door.
They're right at the front door and they engage everybody that comes in and asks them for ID and they have everybody sign in. And that's when working that way.
Yes, in the elementaries.
Pardon?
In the elementary
At the
schools.
elementary school.
Yeah. And in the high schools, it's the security guards do that function.
Okay,
The middle schools right now have nobody.
okay.
What's this greeter gonna do? If somebody's up to bad?
Well, there's things that can be done. Every school has a quick link button to the police department. Now, that's not right at the greeter station. But really, I mean, it's terrible to say, if someone's gonna come into that school, they're gonna get into the school. But the vast majority of people that come into the schools have a legitimate reason for being there, but we have to check that out. It needs to be vetted properly. And there are the more common things that are gonna happen at a school. There's a custody issue, or somebody who's on the bus pick, or the child pickup list. That has to be verified. You know, we do these things much more closely today than we ever did before.
Yeah.
They go through training too.
Yes,
A lot of
absolutely.
training.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second request is for a security coordinator. As Mr. Riccitelli indicated, the focus on security is more prominent today than it ever has, I can say, in my career. And some of that is certainly due to Sandy Hook, but it's also due to what has happened nationally in the schools, unfortunately. There's just a much greater attention, rightfully so, being given to security. What we are seeking is a coordinator who would basically oversee all of security in our schools. In other words, a dedicated position. This person would ensure that we are in compliance with all state security mandates, and the state mandates that have come down in the last 2 years are significant, and we know that there are more that are going to come in. And some of those are at a district level, but a lot of them are literally at the building level. They're going to work with building principals on their crisis response plans and their drills. The schools are required to have more drills and different kinds of drills annually. So this person would literally be at the building. Right now we have a police officer be there every time there's a drill, which is wonderful that the Milford Police Department has been so supportive, but that's pulling staff into our buildings for these kinds of drills, and we're talking 14 buildings that have to have these. So this person would be able to assume that responsibility. They would be conducting annual training, which is now mandated for every employee in the area of security. Every one of us goes through training every single year. Whatever future improvements we would want to engage in, they certainly would be a part of that. They would sit on the working committee, the school security working committee, which was put into existence within weeks after Sandy Hook and is still in existence. That's chaired by Bill Richardson.
Would this person be based in the central office here? Would that be the thought? Or are they based in a school, in one school, and do they, I'm trying to see if they're based here, or are they based and they visit schools, and does this position now, if they're based in central office, need administrative help, you know, a secretary, that type of thing? Is that all figured in here, or is that not necessary?
It's not necessary.
Okay.
The position, although would be, the position we imagine would be based here,
Mhm.
this person would be out in the schools all the time. There are, in addition to the drills that need to take place, every one of those drills needs to be observed, and then after the observation, there has to be a debriefing with the staff, the principal and the staff of the school. Every school now, in accordance with state law, needs to have their own school safety and security committee.
Mhm.
It consists of a police officer, a firefighter, a mental health professional, the school administrator, a parent, etc. And it's mandated that they meet a minimum of 3 times a year. Minutes have to be kept, and then documentation has to be sent to the state on an annual basis. This person we envision at the high school and the middle schools, we have SROs,
Right.
so they would sit on the committee, but this person would sit on the committee in all of the elementary schools. So that's 24 meetings that they would need to attend per year, and then do the complete things.
Do you see that the SROs and the readers, and do they all now come under this person's umbrella, so to speak? Is this person, whoever that is, in charge, probably a bad term, but in charge of all these people?
Yes.
Okay.
One other benefit, maybe a small benefit, but it is a benefit. This person would also oversee residency. Several years ago, we thought that, we asked for money from the Board of Education to have a part-time residency officer, because we think that, you know, we can make gains in making sure that students that are supposed to be in Milford are the students that are in our schools. And this person would also oversee residency.
How does he do that?
What happens,
I've seen people dropped off, you know, pick up the school bus
Well,
that
it's
don't
almost,
live in the neighborhood.
yeah.
I can tell you generally how it's done. Generally, school districts find out about residency issues from the building. One is that you have kids, particularly at the elementary level, who talk.
Yeah,
And
right.
they'll say, my dad lives in New Haven, da-da-da-da, my dad lives here, or, you know, whatever it may be. Number one. Number two, teachers find out. Number three, you do have citizens who will call and say, I saw kids get off the bus coming across the bridge from Stratford, for example. And so if we get that information, we turn it over. Right now, we have one of our supervisors, our administrative supervisors, who then will pursue it. But you know, to be able to have someone who could dedicate a little more time, chances are we would be able to get on more cases. We do remove children from our school annually. We do. Where we notify them, we've learned that you are not residing here, you are residing here, and therefore as of such and such a date you will no longer be a student, and we then copy the school district that they're supposed to be in so that they're notified that you have another student coming to your district.
Who's doing this work now? The security coordinator, who's doing that now?
Many people.
Okay.
And we've been very fortunate. As Dr. Fieser said, right after Sandy Hook, the mayor, Dr. Fieser, and the police chief got together and put together the school security working group. And that group, in the first year, we met every week on a weekly basis for a couple of hours, several hours a week. A tremendous amount of work was put in by members of the police department. Chief Mello dedicated, or not full-time dedicated, but pretty much put at our disposal a lieutenant, a sergeant, and the public information officer, or crime prevention officer. And they did all of the assessments that were required by the state, required for us to allow us to apply for the state grant. Those assessments have to be done on an annual basis in order to be eligible for future funding. And so now, the work is dispersed. I mean, some is, I do, some Pat Bradbury, the facilities director, does. Many of the things the principals do in their buildings now.
So it's getting done.
It's getting done with a tremendous amount of resources from the police department. And quite honestly, that needs to be sustained over time. And I don't know, I mean, Chief Mello has been so supportive of us, but over time, I don't know that that level of commitment can be put into Milford Public Schools. We've had this discussion with other school districts, and there are a growing number of school districts that are going to a full-time dedicated security director. I'll get back to that in a second, but the state security manual, state security template that was put out by the Infrastructure Council, names, or right in there, has the responsibilities of a district safety and security coordinator. And so the state hasn't mandated it yet, but it's in their manual that you need to have a safety and security coordinator. We did a survey of school districts, and it's only the ones that responded to us. We know that there are many other school districts out there that have full-time dedicated security coordinators, but I'll just mention the ones that responded to us. East Hartford, Hartford, Newtown, Greenwich, Region 12, Seymour, Shelton, Stamford, Wallingford, West Hartford, Westport, and Weathersfield. They all have full-times, and from what we understand, more and more school districts are going to the dedicated coordinator.
You know if Stratford has one?
I don't. They didn't respond.
Hamden?
Hamden responded to us. They have a shared position. And one of the school districts that responded to us put out a, their facilities director retired. So they redid the job description with a heavy background in security. So they upped the salary and they put more security functions in that. So it's all over the lot, but the trend is moving towards this.
Okay, I just want to know
it's
if
there.
comparable school districts have this position.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Hamden, Bristol, Fairfield is a little bigger than us probably, but Fairfield's comparable,
Yeah.
and Stratford.
Well, I, as I said, we put out the survey.
Right.
Only the ones that
Right,
answered
but
us.
you may know if they have one.
I don't.
Stratford
No.
has one.
They'd be on my
Or
list.
Hamden, you know?
Yeah.
So some of the schools on the list that you just read off are schools that we typically compare ourselves to, Shelton,
Well, some of them were pretty big though. I mean, Hartford was in
Yeah.
there, I mean, some of them were pretty big.
But we also know.
Some are actually smaller, and they have a,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, and we also know that New Haven and Bridgeport do. They definitely do, but they didn't respond to our survey. So we think that there's other districts that are out there that have them, bigger and smaller. But again, as Mrs. Glennon said, we're often compared to Wallingford, Weathersfield, and Shelton, and those are all on the list.
well, yeah, I remember Hamden, was always being compared to Hamden, Bristol, cities that were roughly our size, okay?
Yeah. And I would just say that, we tell everyone that security is our number one priority, and it is. But as I said, there's many people that are doing it, but there's not one person it's their only responsibility.
Mhm.
And that's why we feel like
Yeah.
this is something that Milford needs at this point in order for us to continue to say that we do everything that we possibly can to ensure the security and safety of students and staff.
And our last request under safety and the school climate is for 2 additional SROs. We have found that the current 4 SROs that work in our schools have been invaluable. We have them, 2 at our high schools, one at Warren, one in Law, and then 2 that are shared among the 3 middle schools. Actually, one that's split between East Shore and Harborside, and the other is approximately 80% at West Shore and 20% at the academy. And they simply have been invaluable.
Inlands, Rutland, room A.
May, around the corner,
Yes,
keep going around, and then after you pass the restrooms on your right.
thank you.
The SROs have, it's been wonderful to see the relationships that they've established with students and with staff. I mean, they've really become part of the faculty in the schools, so they are really able to step in so many different situations, not only things that happen immediately, but in anticipation of, you know, what they pick up from kids or hearing out on the street in terms of, you know, kids who are, you know, in conflict, or if there's a bullying situation that's going on. It's amazing to see on their own time how many of the SROs go to student activities. We see them at basketball games. I see them at, you know, the school plays, you know, the concerts. You know, and I'm always a little surprised because I know they're there on their own time in support of the schools. So the desire would be to have two. One that would be assigned to the middle school to enable to have a full-time person in each of the middle school, and one that would be for the elementary schools, sort of overseeing the 8 elementary schools. And we recognize that, you know, we would, you know, if they were to be supported, it would be a split between ourselves and the city. But just wanted to let you know that, you know, this would be our desire.
What's the, excuse me, what does the position pay?
It's
75,000?
37 and a half.
Huh?
37 and a half, or higher
That's the Board of Ed portion of it, so it's
Right.
basically
Okay.
six.
Right, it's a entry-level patrolman salary. At last guess, I think it was around 65,000. And then the additional money goes toward benefits and things
So
like
they're
that.
getting equivalent to what the security coordinator gets, almost.
Well, they're a sworn police officer. They're, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they do, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because the security coordinator is getting 70, and these guys are gonna get
75.
65.
Yeah.
Well, they're full-time, they're full-time police officers.
Okay.
And the last piece here is some operational needs. So East Shore Middle School has 21,000 additional square feet now that the renovation has been completed. And there is a real need to have another custodian there. That we actually had to pay a fair amount of overtime this year simply because the staff that's there hasn't been able to keep the building clean within the hours. And then we also are requesting a special education van driver and van. Let me start with the van first. And Sue Keller can jump in on this, but what you may not realize is that the transportation for special education students out of district, and even some within district, is not handled by Durham Bus. It's handled by an outside vendor. We have to annually bid for that vendor. We can't do 3 years contracts, and that's because we never know from year to year what students will need to be transported, how many, you know, which kids would be outplaced, et cetera, what the physical disabilities the kids may have, and so what kind of bus would they need, et cetera. We have 3 vans right now, our own vans and our own van drivers to help transport kids within Milford. The goal here is to purchase a 4th van for $40,000 and to purchase, you know, have one of our own folks become a van driver. And so, for example, we have, is it 6 students, Sue, that are in a school in Stratford?
There's 4 right now.
4 right now? So the idea of being able to, that's just an example of this van and van driver would be able to transport those 4 kids to Stratford, come back and maybe do some other runs. And and we're taking care of that and not having to have a vendor who is transporting these kids every single day at far, far greater cost. So the output is $60,000, but in a very short amount of time, we will make up that money and then start to realize the savings just because we're transporting.
Do you have to carry any extra insurances for transporting, if you're transporting students yourself?
No, not additional, because we're already transporting. We're covered by the city's liability insurance and the umbrella policies.
Okay.
That's the total salary for the van driver?
Yeah, approximately 20,000. It's a
Right,
How
because
much?
it's a paraprofessional.
I'm sorry?
It's a paraprofessional who's trained as a van driver, so that's their salary.
20 grand.
Yes.
Part-time, right?
No, full-time.
But it's a school year, 180-day position.
Okay.
So those are the major requests that we've made, the major requests, which amount to $2,300,000. What we are pleased to be able to tell you is that the majority of these costs, we were able to find savings within our existing budget, either through reallocation or actual reductions. And those are listed on your second page. So the question already was raised, around the fact that we're reducing teachers. We want to remind you that enrollment continues to decline. The biggest bubble in the elementary has left, and we're now seeing the reduction happening in the middle school and the high school, which will continue. So the 13.4 regular education teachers those positions that will be reduced are really coming out of the middle and the high. At a savings of $804,000. We are also able to reduce special education teachers due to declining enrollment. Again, we haven't really reduced special ed teachers hardly at all, but we're to a point of where we're able to do that and not at all that will impact student services. And then the reclassification, which we talked about, of the director position, if that goes through, there would be a savings of the $30,000 from the .5 teaching. So there's $1.1 million in savings just in staff reductions. In addition, we have some savings in transportation.
Can I hold you right there?
Oh, sure.
The regular education, the 13 of those teachers, are those retirements, basically?
Well, the positions are real
Right.
positions that would be reduced.
Right.
Might there be people who will retire? Yes. And remember, we anticipate we're gonna have a number of openings at the elementary, so some of the people who are in those positions may very well move to the elementary level.
But we could have a higher figure here if potentially you get retirees at 90,000 or higher.
Yeah, in our budget, in our salary accounts, we budget each year for a number of retirements based upon the average number of retirements. And it's between 18 to 20 retirements per year. Last year, we had many more than that. It was the first year, the new teacher's contract was coming in this year, and there were a number of changes with insurance benefits and things like that. So anybody that was contemplating retiring retired last year, so we have many more than we normally have, but we usually budget for 18 to 20 retirements.
In essence, I'm trying to figure out, how do you come to this figure of 804?
Oh, we assign a figure of $60,000, which is the typical salary.
That's the bottom level of the salary range, isn't it? 60?
A little bit.
A little bit more than that, yeah. Right. So
What bottom level is it? Okay, I'm all set.
How are you saving that 30 if the reclass of the teacher at the academy? How are you saving that again?
We're taking a half of the teacher's salary off.
Okay.
So she's right now, the position is right now a .5 director and a .5 teacher position.
Right.
So we're taking the teacher, half the teacher piece off,
Okay.
but we're adding in the difference for the person to become, for that position to become the full-time director. So it was $22,000
Right,
added, but
right.
the savings on the teacher side is $30,000. Because we just talked about a teacher position is $60,000, this is a
Right.
0.5.
Right.
So that piece gets saved, but meanwhile, we added $22,000 to boost the director piece.
Okay, you know, we're going up, the salary's going up 22, from 92 to 114, yet we're,
It's just the dollars you're saving from one side to the other. You're not comparing that, hey, we're taking a piece of this and putting it towards this. You're just saying, hey, I've eliminated this, I have this much money. I'm adding this, I have this much, you know, I need this much money, and you're just balancing it out, or
Right.
applying this to
It's the
it.
net difference.
Right.
no, I
it's-
can't,
But I understand.
Scott, I don't know how that could be.
No, it doesn't add up.
Well, I'm not saying that, what I'm saying is if my understanding of this is that you have this position, whether it's applied to something or not, you have $30,000, right?
That's an estimate, though.
Oh,
You know, I thought it was like in the 50s, which, you know, and that's why I don't know how you could be saving more than you're adding, and their salary's going up by 22.
Well, you still have a net add.
Huh?
You still have a net add.
Well, yeah, 22, but
Yes.
here it's showing you have a net decrease of 8.
We'll get you an exact
Alright.
analysis
Okay.
based on the actual person's salary.
Okay.
Right.
Part of it is also, and I don't want to complicate the issue, part of it is that right now, if you looked at the FTE, full-time equivalent teachers at the academy,
Right.
it shows 6.5, if my memory serves me correctly. Well, it will no longer be 6.5,
Right.
it'll be 6.
Right.
So you take that 0.5 and you show that it's a reduction.
I realize
piece of
that,
it.
but
We're talking
I'd
about
like Jim to
actual
get me the actual numbers,
Yeah.
because I don't know how you could possibly, you know, be saving
But
money.
it's a reclassification.
Yeah.
We're not actual figures, that's. what-
Right, exactly, yeah, we're not using actual
That
figures
person
here
that's
and
going from
savings
there to
and maybe,
there.
you know, the addition, we're not using the actual numbers.
We'll get you the exact analysis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on the staffing piece?
No, thank you.
Under transportation, due to the reconfiguration, we anticipate that we will need fewer buses. And so we're showing a savings of $150,000 for transportation. Also, because of the new arrangement between Durham and the city with respect to their being actually able to get their fuel at the same place as the city. Trucks get theirs, and the drop in fuel, the cost of fuel, there's a $20,000 savings there.
Wouldn't the fuel be much more reduction? It would save an 150, oh, is that including the fuel, the regular 150,000? Or is that just,
Yeah, the reason we're conservative on the amount that we believe we'll be able to save, because the city goes out to bid once a year in the end of October. So it's November to November. So by the time this contract kicks in, or by the time this budget kicks in, we'll only be able to realize the savings or realize the price that the city is currently getting on its bid until November. And then we don't know what the prices are going to be after that. So it could be more, it could be less. The other thing is, when the city went out to bid, which is, it's October, it's October each year, the real effect of the decline in prices hadn't hit yet. So it's much lower than it was last year, but it's not as low as if the city had the ability to wait till, we'll say, January. So that's why it's a guess. We know that we have a good idea that we're gonna save money.
would it be
based on
cheaper to
the
go
amount
to
of gallons.
Costco, Jim?
Oh, no. Because the real benefit is we don't pay all the state and federal
State and
taxes.
federal taxes, yeah.
Yeah.
And we just installed, am I correct, a new pump that the city gets to use their bid prices on at the site on Logate Lane, which up until a year, well, very recently, we hadn't had.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great new arrangement. It allows us the difference in, really, it's all those taxes that we don't need to pay. The city's been great in allowing us also. Durham has 15 or 16 gas-fired buses, and we now fuel up, they fuel up at the city pumps on Ford Street, and then bill Durham for the amount. Actually, they bill us for the amount. It's been a great relationship.
Is Durham coming up for bidding?
No, the contract was just renewed last year, so there's still 2 more years on this renewal.
And then there's some other savings. One is in curriculum work at $120,000. So the board and, with your support, the Board of Aldermen last year as well, we did a significant amount of curriculum work this past, last June and then all through the summertime, such that we're able to reduce that line item. I mean, it's not fully reduced, but we reduced it by $120,000. Energy conservation, you know that we've been a part of what used to be energy education and is now Synergistics, and we paid an annual fee to them in the amount of $253,000 annually. Well, that ends in June. We do not have to pay that amount. So we would have the savings of $253,200. But what we wanted to do is to put about a half of that amount of money back into the budget for other energy infrastructure that would help with further savings, and then also with some upgrades, energy upgrades. So what we chose to do is to reduce the amount by $126,000, keeping a little more than that in the budget to continue to help with savings.
Does the energy person get paid out of this savings?
No,
No.
no, that salary is similar to salary accounts.
Now, with this 126 that you say that you're holding, will that go into that fund you have, or what do we call that? Where's that gonna be?
It's going back, taking it out of the budget, it's been reduced, so it's going back.
Yeah, this 126, but you're
that's
saving
the
the
same.
other 126.
No,
Where's that gonna be?
The other 126 is what we proposed to
Actually
keep in the
use?
budget. Yeah, to keep in the budget and use for, as Dr. Peter said, energy infrastructure, upgrading energy efficient systems, boilers, things like that.
Is that already planned, budgeted? I mean, you have the definitive expenditures that you're coming up with for this?
No, not yet, because the budget hasn't been approved yet, so we can't yet.
So Joe, Synergistics, you're not gonna renew with them, obviously.
Correct.
What do they provide that you're not gonna have?
Well, actually, as long as we do certain things, one of them is to retain the energy specialist position. As long as we do those, then we still get many of the benefits of the synergistic program. Their software program, which allows us to monitor and to measure and to benchmarking, we will continue to be able to use that.
Okay.
They're consultants that come in annually and look at, or not annually, but many times throughout the year, and look at what we're doing, analyze what we're doing, and make suggestions. We will continue to get those services.
You'll still have them?
Yes.
They'll still provide those services, even though they don't get a fee?
Correct. That was part of the deal.
Okay.
As long as we do.
Maintain the Energy Star.
Right, right. And there's other things that we need to do. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but they're not money related. It's behavioral things that we need to continue to do in order to keep our so-called guarantee.
Okay.
And the last is computers. Last year, again, in the Board of Education budget, which was supported by the city, we were able to purchase a significant number of computers and other forms of technology. along with a grant that we received, which was over $350,000. So the purchase of technology last year was very significant. And it went into kindergarten through 12th grade. So this year, we reduced our line item for computers by $400,000, recognizing that we didn't need to purchase clearly what we had purchased because we had done so much so last year. So, so the major savings or reductions is $1.9 million. And so when you look at what we're requesting and then what the savings are, you can see, again, the major request, $2,300,000. The major savings, just about $2 million. So we didn't cover every single piece with reallocations and reductions, but we certainly covered a significant amount. And so what you see on the bottom box there is what the proposed budget was, or what the adopted budget was for 2014. What the proposed Board of Ed budget is, and the difference is $1.9 million, and that's a 2.13% increase, which we feel is really responsible, again, in light of redistricting, which is obviously the biggest figure in all of this.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, the statements. And I think the board had some questions during the presentation. If there's any questions right now, certainly the floor is open. If not, I think we are creatures of habit. We do like to page through the budget, and I'm sure there might be a few things that come up as we do so. Is there anything further that anyone else would like to state before we get started? Excuse me. I think we start on page 1 with the 1,000 series salaries. Administrators, Department 1110, or line 1110.
Do we additional, I'm sorry.
Please, your floor is open.
We had, I'm sure we had some retirements on administrators during the course of the year or not.
Well, this is anticipated.
This is the anticipated,
Correct.
right? Did we have any retirements in the past year under this, anticipating any
This past year?
out of this group here? This is including no retirements anticipated.
I think we have one that we're anticipating for this coming June.
Right. And will be replaced. Okay.
There was a 0.3 increase with the cap. 111, teachers, radio ed, and teachers, special education, page 2. And we won't handle the appendix separately, but there are references to the appendix.
We should explain that it is listed here in 2015 and 16, may not necessarily be how it's actually going to fall out depending upon the redistricting. In other words, the teachers, for example, for Cafe Meadow or for Madison, et cetera, those numbers will shift.
But the total will be the same.
Right.
Thank you.
And the same for special education.
Any
Page 3, 111, guidance, social, psychologist, and specialist speech, hearing, language. I'll move right along, but if anybody wants to jump in at any time, please do so. page 4, 112, 1112, 1114, 1117, 1118, 1119.
Do you have a breakdown of coaches? That's
815.
somewhere, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. okay.
8:15.
Hockey coach numbers check out.
I'm looking for that one, yeah. They don't know how much of that.
Secretarial, 1121.
Are those raises contractual?
Yes, yes. Although the secretary's contract is, expires June 30th, 15, and so the increase in this budget would not take effect until the 15-16 school year.
The new contract was when?
No, we have not, we just started negotiations with the secretary.
So did you put an anticipated amount of?
Budget.
Yeah. Like we do for the city, you put a cross site.
Correct. Where we think it's gonna be. Yes, there are two asterisks there, and we put a note. It looks like there's an increase of 2 secretaries. In actuality, there are not. In May of 2014, the previous budget, or actually this current budget, 2 secretarial positions, one at each high school, were eliminated. But in reality, those positions were cut. The positions that were cut were attendance clerks at both high schools, which, although in the secretarial union, were not carried under the secretarial page, they were covered under hourly aides. And so you'll see a corresponding reduction in the section for, on page 8. You'll see under hourly aides, account 1123, for high school, we have the 2 asterisks there. So that's where those 2 positions were eliminated from. So it looks like there's new positions, new secretarial positions, there are not. They were taken out on paper where they should have been taken out of this hourly account. But at the time the budget was passed, we hadn't done the negotiations with the secretarial union as to which positions would actually leave the budget. So we made the technical correction here.
I'm going to go back for a second to stipend coaches. Just the asterisk in regards to athletic directors, stand out on page 815. Budgeted out of 111, is it somewhere else that shows up under?
They're paid teacher salaries, so they are carried under the 1111 teachers.
Okay.
And then their stipends for being the athletic director are carried here. So their stipend is $11,000 over their teacher salary.
Thank you. Page 6, maintenance custodian, 1122. I think you indicated there was one new additional position for East Shore. Page 7, 1120, 1127, 1128, 1129.
What actually is a non-certified supervisor?
Not right.
Huh?
Those
Director of facilities. like the directive, but.
Oh, okay.
The security guards, are those at the high schools? Are those separate during school hours or after?
They're at high schools.
Yeah.
There's two at each high school.
So overtime's going up by 162,000?
Yes, but the bulk of that is the additional money we built in for the reconfiguration this summer.
Okay, so that's in there.
Yes.
It's the IT overtime, the secretarial, no, that wouldn't be, it's not secretarial in here, but the IT time and, the MIS and custodial and et cetera.
Okay, so I could find that 162 in that grouping over here.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Not the whole amount, but that's the largest portion of the increase for overtime. And the balance is, if you look at the, what page are you on? Okay. On page 7, if you look at the historical, we're trying to get closer to where the historical has been, and then we also added in the reconfiguration costs for overtime.
Okay.
Page 8, 1123, 1124, 1126.
So hiring 2 more special ed paraprofessionals, is that right? Increase of 2?
Those, I believe, hold on one second. Those are the van drivers. No.
What is a decrease?
No, going from 106 to 108.
Well, yeah.
106 to 108, and then
That's coming
I've lost, they're coming out of the top 2 and going into the bottom 1. Right,
Yes.
total's the same, but
Yes.
am I hiring 2 new?
No.
No, just one, it's gonna be the van driver.
Okay, but I'm going from 106 to 108, okay? That's 2.
So it's moving one of the classroom areas to special education.
Read
Okay, so I'm moving one from up above,
Right, from 3 to 2.
right? And am I taking the other one from 2 to 1?
Correct.
Is that what I'm doing, Jimmy?
Yes, they're moving from one classification to another.
Okay,
No overall increase in paras.
right, okay. All right.
Could you just explain line 1130, the retirement line? I'm just,
Yes,
That's-
under contract, under different bargaining unit contracts, there are certain retirement benefits,
Okay.
severance pays and things like that, and that's where the budget that.
that's what I thought. Nothing further on salaries. We'll move into the 2000 series, excuse me. Benefits. Pages 11 and 12. I assume these are basically contractual.
Yes.
This, to the mayor, we don't have this in our budget, in the city budget, do we? As part of this,
Social Security.
Social Security and the Blue Cross, is that part of our?
No, there are portions, the medical benefits for current Board of Ed employees is under the city budget. But for example, the Blue Cross supplement for Board of Ed employees is under the Board of Ed budget. It's part of our plan, but they reimburse or carve out their portion. For Social Security, that's part of their budget. Their compensation is paid directly.
These wouldn't be teachers anyway, right? Because teachers don't come under Social Security.
Retirees.
Huh?
Oh, for the Social Security or for the?
Right, Social Security and Medicare, they don't come under that, right?
Correct.
So this is strictly administrative people, non-teaching.
Non-certified.
Okay, go on.
3000 series, contracted services, pages 13 through 15.
What are contracted services, 3306?
The bulk of that increase is the $50,000 that we have built in there for the moving expenses. So contracted services could be any number of things. We've listed some. Under contracted services, we have the athletic trainers at the 2 high schools. We have, we employ a network support firm that comes in and does work over and above what our technicians are able to do. So anything that we contract out for is carried under that 3306 account. Our copy of the contract, which is a very big portion of that. We have a district-wide copier contract. A number of years ago, we eliminated about 70% of our printers because they were extremely costly for supplies for the printers, and we went to a system where people print right to a copy machine. So they have to walk a little bit further down the hall to get their copies, but it's much more manageable. But that whole contract is in contracted services.
Before we go any further, if you can just help me,
Please.
Mr. Mayor, on the education health insurance on our city budget, it's 19 million. Contribution self-insurance fund. Education health insurance, what is that?
That's for present employees,
Right?
and that's the proportional share that's of our total health insurance for present employees for the Board of Ed side, what the cost is.
We pay that portion.
It's under the city side of the budget as opposed to the Board of Ed side of the budget.
Right.
There are certain things that the city administers, for example, some of our insurances where the Board of Ed actually reimburses the city for their proportional share. So the city finance office does the calculations to get the prorated amount for property and casualty insurance, even though they're under the city's plan at this point. There's a prorated amount that you'll see in the Board of Ed budget that they then reimburse the city. The health insurance for present employees is under the city budget as a standalone item under the city side.
City side, the whole. When we're considering the total school expenditures, this is part of it.
I don't have the budget in front of me, but if you
Yeah.
actually look at, I think it's page 9 on the city budget book, the mayor's proposed budget.
Yeah.
It's actually broken down so that
Oh, yes, it does,
that
yeah.
the school expenditures, in addition to that operational account item, all can be viewed at the same time. I think it's page 9.
Yeah, it's right there, I just saw it. It's on the general fund, right? Education, yeah. That's the 26 million then.
Well, that whole bracket of expenditures, it's calculated. Yeah, so the textbooks, the audit fees, the school debt, the employee benefits, the operations, which is the big number that we're discussing today, and then the contributions to the health insurance, and then the education health services, all those,
That block is
all those
26
things
million.
in that bracket, yeah.
Okay. So we're saying what's the total school budget, we gotta include the 26 million, plus what is it, 61 million here or whatever? Oh,
Right, well,
yeah,
that's-
91. That 91 does not include this, right? Okay. I'm all set, thank you.
4,000 series facilities, page 16. 4100, 4101, 4102, 4103, 4104, and 4200. Questions?
Jim, at East Shore, the jump in heat is just for the additional
Yes,
square footage?
correct. Yeah, and we're still regulating that. All of the control systems, part of the punch list to close out the project.
Mhm.
So all of the control systems on the utilities are not working to 100% capability. So when that happens, we think we'll be able to refine it a little bit further, but this is based upon what we spent this past year, which was astronomical.
Mhm.
So a lot of it had to do with the fact that the school was, while construction was going on, was virtually lit with electricity almost 24 hours a day sometimes. And in the winter, when we had temporary means of ingress and egress, a lot of times there was not, the cold air was just coming in, contractors were coming in. So we're quite confident that we're going to be able to reduce the amount. The other thing that raises the electricity cost is the new wings are air conditioned. So that's a new cost that wasn't there before.
This energy conservation, here's that 127,000. Next year's budget will show this breakdown somewhere in the various areas or what, as expenditures? Or will you just say it's expended?
Well, we need to, what we need to do is to look at where we need to spend energy.
Right.
We need to bring in a consultant to take a look at our systems and see where we need to spend in order to save money over time, to invest in our energy infrastructure in order to save, over time. That's.
But we won't know where this 127,000 was spent. All you'll have next year's budget adopted, period. Not expended,
Correct. But if you ask, we can certainly give an.
you can break that down.
Sure.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Also, the 4301, 4300, 4301, 4302, 4303, and through 4308. Anything on those pages 19 and 20? Are there any significant ground projects proposed this year? I know historically there's been drop-offs, proposed driver, student drop-offs and new buses.
Well, in the bond authorization that you approved, it included about $500,000 for traffic flow and safety features at Meadowside School. That's going to be a major project. Also in that bond authorization was the hazardous material abatement, and we don't think we'll be able to do BAW this year, but we think we'll be able to do foreman. So that'll be taking place this summer.
Are you doing new turf fields? Is that in the bond authorization a year ago?
A year ago.
Or is some of that out of the sinking fund. or
Yep,
fund.
some of it was in the 450,000 was in the non-lapsing fund.
Right.
And then the mayor's bond authorization of about 750,000 more. This past summer, we did Jonathan Law,
We did.
and this summer, we're doing for him.
Nothing further, the 5,000 series transportation, tuition, and other support. 5,100 through 5,111. And then 5,200 through the 5,600 series, pages 23 through 25.
Gasoline buses, that new figure 240 is reflecting this 20,000 reduction. Whoa.
And you can see, this year, we expect to save about 38,000 over the previous year, largely because of the new relationship with Durham, and being able to buy it.
Yeah. Question on the Bridgeport agriculture, we're going to 28,000, 28,000 roughly?
Yes, the Bridgeport Aquaculture Program is, it's a half-day program that is eligible, law and foreign students are eligible, and we pay tuition, we pay one price, and we can send as many students as sign up for it. The program is so popular that we have more than one bus load. So before we were able to fit all the students on one bus, but now we have to have one bus from foreign and one bus from law, because there's more than 50 students and we can only put a maximum of 50 on one bus. So it's an additional, it's the cost of one additional bus for the part-time program.
We almost doubled them.
We did double it. It went from one bus to two buses.
And the tuition for that's in another area here, so I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's on page 25.
Ah. That went down.
It did. Yep, it did.
No, that's not logic to me.
It's, yeah, it's, right.
One cost for
Huh?
all the students in the state.
It's a one cost for all
It's
this?
a bulk deal.
And the state subsidizes some of these programs. Like you see that the tuition for BOAG also is reduced
Right.
because the state subsidized it at a higher rate than they did the year before.
And ECA, what is that? I'm not familiar with that. ECA program.
Educational Center for the Arts.
Oh,
It's a magnet program.
is that in New Haven?
Yes.
It's also a half-day program.
I'm sorry,
Half-day program.
half day. That's a wonderful program.
Yes, they're all good programs. I think they're very popular, all of them.
Yeah, right.
Jim, the tuition special ed, we get part of that increase from the state?
Correct. Yep. We're eligible for excess cost reimbursement.
How much? Of what percentage?
It's not based, it's not, there's a formula for how many times you go over the amount you're budgeted for. And then you get, I believe it varies every year, the total amount. It varies between 60% and 75% that you get once you reach that threshold. So,
What's the threshold? Do we determine that, or do they do?
Sue, can you help me out?
They do.
They do?
What else?
And so this, the 400,000, are we gonna get part of that back?
Yes. Yeah. We do.
Okay.
Page A3, question, frequently asked question number 12. Right. And it just gives the history of question number 12, how much funding does the state provide for special education compared to the costs? You can see what we paid out and what we got back from the state over the past couple of years. And then question 15 explains a little bit more, in a little bit more detail, how the state derives that number.
I'll switch gears a little bit to the telecommunication expense, 55401. Can you just give a little background on that line item? Seems to increase over the last year.
Yeah.
Page 24.
Yes, the bulk of, there's, the bulk of that is
The voice over and
voice over IP, right?
Right.
We've completed in all of the elementaries, all of the middle schools and the academy, we still have to do 2 high schools. And so that, the increase there will finish the whole district with voice over IP.
So that expenditure, would we anticipate a decrease in the next year or two? on
Yes.
that? There's nothing further on the 5,000 series. Move on to the 6,000 series, educational supplies. 6,100 through 6,902.
Woodworking in the schools, I'm just looking at it, I don't see it. Woodworking at the high school, you could.
Yeah, we have it in grade 7, 8, and then in high school, there's courses like constructive technology and materials processing that use the wood.
I can show you my daughter's mobile.
I'm almost close. I get there in that little place in there.
It was the woodworking classes that did the Adirondack chairs that the Milford Education Foundation,
Oh, yeah,
auctioned off.
it's cool. The 6411 next time. So these are all, I mean, when we look at the expended 2013-14, then we jump. What happened here?
If you look on page 35, a breakdown of courses and titles, but essentially what happened is there was a lull in textbook buying as we moved away from the old standards and we moved to Common Core. There was the lull lag was caused by the fact that the publishers weren't ready with the new textbooks yet. So now we're at a point where the new textbooks are coming online, which is fueling a lot of the work that's, if you look at the detailed list on that page, you'll see there's a lot of textbook adoptions in math. And in addition, the AP College Board has revised the curriculum for a lot of the AP, particularly the history courses. So there's textbook needs there, and we're moving forward on purchasing a lot of textbooks as we revise our English language arts curriculum in response to the Common Core adoption. There's a lot, it's kind of been in the pipeline and it's been held up. But now we're at a point where the materials are becoming available and we need to move forward on the actual purchase.
What is the status of Common Core? Is that going ahead? I'm not going ahead? I mean,
Well,
you are, but
The
in
state of
general,
Connecticut has
though,
adopted.
national.
Well, the state of Connecticut's adopted it, it's to that adoption by the state to which we answer.
Right.
Nationally,
Then
I
they'll
would
react
say,
to this federal, then we'll be back to square one. What was I on here? With the AP courses, what is the reaction of colleges to them now? I understand because there's a flood of AP courses, they're not as respecting the AP as much as they used to.
Well, the fact is, from a financial point of view, if the colleges are in a position where they're gonna give you credit for it, because of course you took in high school, that's money that's coming out of their pocket. So while they respect the fact, and they still look for the fact that students have AP and have been successful in AP in college, and it helps students get into better colleges, the financial incentive that the colleges used to offer is going away. That hurts their bottom line.
Right.
So it's not everyone yet, but
Right.
that is a
It's
growing
getting to
trend.
that point, right?
But again, having to go to applying to college, I think the AP, having the AP on your transcript is certainly
Right.
a major benefit.
Certain colleges, right?
Most all of them, really.
Okay.
We've had a number of students in the past couple of years, the past 3 years, coming out of both high schools, who if they're applying to a program, even the honors program at UConn, who because of either their AP courses and or the early college experience courses that we align with UConn, are able to enter UConn technically as freshmen, but begin credit-wise in their sophomore year, or sometimes even the middle of their sophomore year, they've earned enough credit. So UConn still will give you the financial benefit for these courses. But that window's going to be closed, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I have my granddaughter, and she's freshman, but she can almost go into junior because of her APs, yeah. But there was a question there, even though she's at St. Louis, and even there, they were questioning, and I said, I'm glad you're through. Because these people drive you nuts.
well, there was
Good luck,
also,
Brian.
there was also some questioning, I think, a few years ago about the level of rigor, and actually what
Right.
what the college board did was that they assessed every district, you know, to look at the AP courses and what their curriculum was, et cetera, to see if it met the standard, which Milford has met the standard.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, and that's
That's the
took place,
district.
what's that, 2-3 years ago?
I was even longer, I was at Foreign still, so it's about
Okay.
7-8 years ago,
Okay.
they started the AP course audits, and those continue. So they had that initial first year, and every 3 years now, the teacher has to have their resume examined, the courses, the assessments, everything has to be assessed by College Board.
Okay, thank you.
Any further on the 6,000 series? Nothing, we'll move on to the 7,000 series equipment. 7310 to 7392.
The computers.
So in 7392, you've got the addition of 3 vehicles, if I'm reading it, right? Okay.
Yep. Yes, the special ed van, and in addition, there is one vehicle that would be assigned to the assistant facilities director. That's replacing a vehicle that is a 1997 Jeep Wrangler with over 182 miles, 182,000 miles on it. And also for a regular maintenance vehicle with a snowplow on it. we try to purchase one of those per year to keep the fleet turning over.
So you're gonna retire one?
Yes. And in addition, we put into the budget this year, money for for lack of a better word, Mr. Mayor, help me out here. The public works vehicles that push the snow.
The plows?
Very, very small.
blower?
Yeah, like a skag mower, but on the scale of a.
Skid steer? Skid steer?
Yeah, I'm completely drawing a blank
That's
right
what
now.
I'm at. It's
It's-
a
it's-
snow blower, big snow
Yeah,
blower.
it's capable of doing sidewalks, large stretches of
Vent
sidewalks.
track,
What's that?
the vent track. It's like, it looks like a mower,
Yes.
but it's a
Yes.
small little, it looks like a skag mower, but it's got a little enclosure and everything.
Correct.
It'll plow sidewalks.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, and that's included in that number also.
okay.
Nothing further on 7,000 series, we'll move on to 8,000 series, all other educational support, page 40. It's 8,100 through 8,210.
When you're saying professional development, are these people coming in to do this work, or how does that go about? Or do they go to college, take additional course, or?
It could be really a combination of things. I mean, professional development could be somebody coming in to provide service to teachers or administrators, paraprofessionals. But it also could be, we're sending people someplace to do it. A couple of years ago, we had our literacy coaches go to Lesley University in Boston to be trained as literacy coaches. And it also could be that we're paying our staff to deliver the professional development. So it's really a kind of combination, and pick a model that works best. Yeah, to essentially have the greatest impact.
Now, like professional development days, would this be involved, for
Right.
example?
So on a professional development day, where there's 4 of those during the course of the school year,
Right.
those are primarily paying staff to either deliver it or having somebody come in. But even like, when we put in the math investigations, which was the new math curriculum 3-4 years ago, we did initial trainings with everyone, and we did some of that over the summer, with teacher availability. But then what we also do is, in order to make it stick, we provide ongoing professional development during the course of the year. So when teachers are beginning a new math unit, we'll have, we'll give every teacher at a grade level 2 hours of professional development at the beginning of every unit to help them get ready. Because we find that if you give it to teachers, say in August, come January, life isn't different. So you have to continually get it. And those smaller doses actually work better than the bigger doses to maintain and grow it. For years, school systems engaged in a process where you got a day and that was it, good luck. And people found that it was a lot of money and had very little impact. So you're looking for if you really want to change the practice, you kind of have to go at it and stay on it.
Now, in other professions such as investment advisors, CPAs, they have continuing education requirements. Do we have that in our educational system at all?
They did. Connecticut for many years had continuing education units, CUs. 3-4 years ago, they essentially got rid of it with the adoption of the teacher evaluation plan. It just kind of went away. But so under that old model, teachers had to earn 9 of those a year.
Right.
We don't use that model anymore. They're not collecting these pieces of paper, but we essentially start to use the same model. And we, with the Wednesday after school meetings, with the coaches at the elementary school, the literacy coaches at the middle school, the professional development is just, it's like any profession. You've got to just stay on it. You've got to stay at the top of your game. And it's our, it's our obligation to provide it because it has the impact on the student learning.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, just want to even further on the 8,000 series. Move on to grants detail, any questions on that? We covered the appendix, but any questions?
Can I have, on this, Brian, do we have an individual, or is it you, Jim, that goes after these grants? Who does this? Do you write up for grants, and how does that work in the system?
Primarily a collection of people.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of falls into your, where you work. I mean, the title grants, largely most of those are under folks, either myself or folks that work with me. Ms. Keller runs pretty much all the special ed grants. Perkins grant, the open choice grant, those run under me. So it really is a combination of kind of where it makes the most sense in a person's job description and their areas of authority. You know, if you're going to be administering that money, you should be writing the grant, right?
Now, how are you notified about what grants are gonna be available out there, or that, to make sure we're getting the grants, you know what I'm saying?
Well, for continuing grants, like the title grants, we become very familiar with the folks at the State Department of Education who administer those grants. We both of us know those folks pretty well, and they come annually. The state also has a process where they may, like last year, that technology grant, that was really a one-time grant. We get notifications through the state. You basically sign up for an email notification, and on the State Department of Ed website, there's grants grants page, and you can just go through that at any point you want to look for the RFPs. But we also get email notifications to be aware.
Now, like Gates has given out grants for certain programs and et cetera. Now, how are you made aware of these things like that? That's private grants from outside the normal system. How would you find that?
Well, I think, it must be for everybody, but I think we all
Just reading?
email subscribe to services that notify you of private sector grants, you know, foundational grants. And it's a continual network, so even if we don't necessarily hear of it through something that we subscribe to, we're enough networked with staff, other folks in similar roles throughout the state who let us know, you know, and I would say that ACES, which is our rec service, ACES will coordinate grants among its membership districts. So it's really a continual process of, you know, you're always just on the alert, and people are always on the alert for you. And all of our administrators subscribe to these types of services, so it's relatively constant. I will tell you, I would advocate or argue for Peggy Kelly. And Peggy Kelly is a tremendous resource for grants in the city. And I'm sure just not for us, for education, but if she knows that there's money, she'll tell anybody that she thinks can get it, and she works hard to get those monies from folks.
Conferences that you go to, like for you, Dr. Fury, would that come up in conversations about grants and, you know, talking, or is it just?
If they're large grants, they'll come up where it would involve like a group of districts coming together. It would come up, and more often than not, the state somehow might be the one to pass on that kind of information, or ACES would. But sometimes we'll get contacted by a district, like a Wallingford, for example, will send something out and say, you know, we found out about this kind of a grant, you know, are there districts out there that would like to partner with us in this process, which we have done before. So actually, there's more, my experience has been there's more grants that come through than we can, a lot of them we're not eligible for,
Right.
and that's part of it, you know, you kind of read through. But anything that that we think makes sense, one of us will pass on. So two came through on last week that one I passed on to Justine in science, and I forget where the other one went, but that happens continuously. But a lot of them become pretty cumbersome because they may involve, you know, you have to have so many districts, you have to have a higher education institution, you know, the higher ed institution has to be the core person, so then you're reliant upon them really to do the bulk of the work in terms of writing the grants.
Are we getting any help in the autistic children's area? Any kind of grants from the state, or? Because that's a very expensive part of it.
It
our
is, and
budget.
actually, it's our area that continues to grow,
Right.
even though our numbers have declined over the years. The
They have?
students Yes,
Oh,
our overall special education numbers have declined, but our students with autism have continued to increase.
great, okay.
But there have not been any specific grants for students with autism.
Now, the other question on the special education, you said that has decreased. Is that because they moved into the regular classrooms, or?
Some have been because of early intervention, so students are getting what they need at an earlier point in their education, which is what our emphasis has been over the past few years, to make sure that we're intervening as early as possible so that they do not then need to become a student receiving special ed services.
Also, there's been, isn't there been a shift also in terms of the greater percentage of kids being identified for autism, fewer kids for with learning disabilities?
Correct.
So you have this
Oh,
decline
yeah.
in learning disabilities, but
Okay, oops.
Well, thank you for your very thorough and detailed presentation, very informative. We appreciate
Let's see.
your information.
Hey, that hockey coach is underpaid.
He said,
Joe, we can get you to do it for free.
Yeah,
Would you like to volunteer?
Yeah, on that one. Thank you.
Thank you
I
very
have
much.
one more question. Jim, can you get me total enrollment last 3 years? Is it in here?
Well, not last 3 years.
All right, I
Last
just
2
want
years.
last 3 years enrollment, okay? And can I show you what I calculated, like what I was talking about before you were gonna get me, I think I figured it out. Okay, I think I'd like to show it to you though.
Thank you all, stay warm.
Put a coat on.
I don't see you traveling to Boston.
It gets cold this weekend.
Ah,
And then someone was talking about more snow Sunday.
You got boots. You're a snowblower.
Yes, I did.
Now, come on.